Hey guys, Dylan Allen from Allen Endurance Coaching. Today we're talking about effort levels and heart rates and what we're getting out of each one of those particular gears that we find in any particular training plan or workout or whatever. That way you understand what it is you're trying to get out of the workout so you can get as much out of it as possible. So today ended up being a little longer than I wanted it to be, so we're gonna rewind it and we're gonna kind of do it again, give you a basic overview today, and we're gonna turn the rest of it into a little bit of a series kind of coming out over the next couple weeks as we dive into each one of the particular bits. So today, what we got going on, we're looking at heart rate levels and perceived effort level and how that results and how that relates to different gears per se when we're working out, when we're exercising. And so this is important because when we are doing a workout, we need to know what the purpose of the workout is so we can know when we've fulfilled the needs for that workout. And that way we can make sure we're working at the right effort level to get the stimulus we're looking for in our training plan, right? So we can actually improve as athletes. And this is really important. The kind of classic example of failing to do this is the person doing 400-meter repeats and running as hard as they can from the first one. And depending on what the goal of the workout is, I guess you could do that. But normally when we're doing workouts like that, we're trying to spend as much time as possible kind of pushing our VO2 max up and working on that VO2 max, working on that higher top end. And so we want to spend as much time as possible during the workout at that level, right? And let's say that level is here, roughly 90-95% effort. If we're working too hard, we're going to be up here. So we're going to be working hard enough to get the stimulus we're looking for. But after a couple of reps, we're going to be so cooked that we're only going to be able to get to here. And so what that means is we got 2 or 3 reps worth of work in, and we missed out on half or more of the potential gain we could have gotten out of the workout. And so we always want to work just hard enough to get the stimulus we're looking for without putting ourselves in the hole or risking an injury. Because the harder you go, one, the longer it's going to take you to recover. And so you might get deconditioned by the time you're able to get a good workout in again. You might get hurt because the injury risk goes up as we're working more intensely. And you may not be able to actually get in as much stimulus out of a workout as you could otherwise. And so since we're trying to train smarter instead of harder, we want to work just hard enough to actually get the stimulus without putting ourselves in the hole, right? There's always another workout. So most workouts that we do as endurance athletes are working on one of 2 things, fundamentally, or both. We're either working on our metabolism, like the energy production side of stuff, whether it's converting fat into fuel or carbohydrates into fuel, working on pushing our VO2 max up, like that kind of stuff is all metabolic physiology kind of stuff, right? The other thing we're potentially working on is our central nervous system, getting our brain to talk to our legs and our arms and the rest of our body so we're staying coordinated and we're able to maintain good mechanics when we're tired and when acidosis is setting in, like on the last 400 to 800 meters of 5K, right? So depending on the race you're training for, more emphasis is kind of on one or the other, or on a different particular gear or different bits of your metabolism. But fundamentally, that's what the workouts are targeting. Some aspect of your metabolism, some aspect of your central nervous system and coordination, and normally it's some kind of mix of the 2, right? And that's something to keep in mind is you can get more than one stimulus out of any particular workout. You can mix and match, assuming you got the fuel to do it and you can do the work. You can mix and match them. That's what ladder workouts do. That's what progressive long runs do. That's why we do drills, even though we're endurance athletes working on kind of the easier end of the work spectrum. the drills work on our central nervous system, and the long run works on our metabolism, right? So you can mix and match them. But there are kind of 5 big gears. If you're a Jack Daniels fan, not the whiskey, but the exercise physiologist, if you want to geek out about exercise physiology, this is your book. It is really good. It's really useful. I highly recommend looking into it. Yeah, it's probably my most used book. But he kind of has like 5 general gears that he uses for most things. And this is based on different physiological breaks at different effort levels. And most of the people he used in his studies were his runners at the university he worked at. But the concept applies to all of us, right? And so 5 general gears. Some of us only have 3. Some of us have 7 or 8. But the concept of there being multiple gears is the important part. If we're using a 5-gear system, it's easy pace, marathon pace, threshold pace, interval pace, repeat pace. And he kind of breaks down like how much rest you need for how much work you're doing time-wise. And so it works pretty well for converting stuff to being thinking about working in terms of time, because our bodies don't know how far we run. They just know how long we're working for and how hard. So easy pace for most of us is between 65 and 75% effort. And you can do that with heart rate or relative perceived effort, but the difference between those two is going to vary depending on environmental conditions. If it's really hot and humid, you're probably going to be working harder than you feel like you're working, because more of your blood's going to your skin, right? And your heart rate's going to be super elevated. So depending on your environmental conditions, sometimes it's better to use relative perceived effort. Sometimes it's better to use heart rate, depending on where you are and what you got going on. If you have specific questions, get in touch. I'm more than happy to answer specifics. But easy pace, roughly 65 to 75% effort. Marathon pace is going to be kind of that 75-ish% effort. It's still working primarily using fat as a fuel source, but we're starting to burn more carbohydrates per unit of time. And so what that marathon pace is for you is going to vary. The more fit you are and the faster you are, the faster it's going to be, because it doesn't take you as long to run a marathon, so you can operate at a higher intensity, because you only need your carbohydrates to last 2 hours like Eliud Kipchoge versus 3 hours like me or 5 hours like some of my clients. The faster you are, the harder you can work. And that's the one gear that's kind of like race specific, but that's because the marathon's kind of its own unique tricky beast. The 3rd gear is threshold pace, and this is lactate threshold. And so the purpose of this workout, it's going to be 80 to 85% of maximal capacity, but it's the break point to where carbohydrates become the primary fuel source instead of fat. Now, there's an important distinction here. We don't stop utilizing fat as a fuel source as long as we are supplying enough oxygen to keep doing it. What it does mean is the amount of carbohydrates we're burning is going up and up and up and up because we're working harder, and we can get energy out of carbohydrates, out of sugar faster. And so if we need more energy than we can supply with the fat, we're going to be just dumping more of the high octane fuel into the mix. So we're still working that fat metabolism angle, okay? But here's the tricky bit. If we're working too hard and we go over that crossover point, we're going to be conditioning our bodies to hit that crossover point at a lower intensity. And that's not what most endurance athletes want. That lactate threshold is kind of one of those things that really sets our kind of potential upper limit in terms of fitness. Now, in order to reach that upper limit, we got to be working at our interval gear. This one can be kind of confusing, because when most of us say interval, what we mean is some kind of amount of work followed by some kind of amount of rest. Doesn't matter what intensity we're working at, but that's kind of what most of us mean when we say intervals. When we're talking about interval pace, what we mean is that kind of 90 to 95% of maximal effort, really pushing that VO2 max up, right? And this is a lot of times what we're doing with those 400, 800, 1K, 1 mile repeats, is we're pushing those that 3 to 5 minutes, working really hard, and then getting enough recovery to bring the heart rate back down before we do it again, right? So that's our interval effort. And that's going to help us reach that theoretical maximum because it gets us better at being able to utilize oxygen to create fuel. All right. And then the fastest gear is repeat speed. And this is like when we're doing drills and striders and 100, 200 meter repeats. And for some of us, 400 meter repeats or longer. But it's that 100% effort, all out. You know, it kind of feels like you're riding a bike downhill if you're running, or if you're on a bike, riding a bike downhill and trying to keep up with the pedals. But that is really about targeting that central nervous system and staying coordinated. It's had not as much to do with energy production or energy utilization, but it's purely about being able to get the brain to talk to the body so that we're recruiting more muscle fibers, generating more power per contraction, staying coordinated when our blood pH is getting out of whack and the monkey's on the back and we start getting tight. You know what I'm talking about. That last 400 meters of a 5K or a mile race, that feeling, trying to stay coordinated and running fast and nice and loose when you're doing it, is what repeats is for. So, to recap, we got 5 gears. Easy, marathon, threshold, interval, repeat. There are some other gears in there depending on who you are, but for most of us, those 5 gears will cover most of our bases. You can mix and match them. You can put some together in a workout. You can do a ladder workout where you do all of them. You know, you can do some repeats and some intervals and even some threshold work. And during the recovery bits in between them, you're going easy pace. So we're working all those metabolic engines. We're working the central nervous system. You do some drills beforehand to get stuff firing, get the brain talking to the legs. So you're working efficiently. And then, at the end of a run, you're doing some striders or some uphill sprints, kind of like the Brad Hudson folks, Run Faster. Another good book. Use that one a lot too. Kind of working on that central nervous system and power output, being able to actually demand more energy at one time from the muscles. So, if there's something you want to hear about in particular, let me know. Stay tuned. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be kind of diving into a little more details, the nitty-gritty of the physiology behind these, the hows and the whys. And so hopefully we'll learn something. It'll be kind of cool. Anyway, till next time, train smart.